All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of No Bull with No Bull. This is episode 24, and today we have big Marc Shleifman on the podcast. Marc, welcome. Welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here. Finally got the invite.
Yeah, well, we tried to make it work, for the first episode, but then you canceled, and the second and the third, and I guess you're a busy guy.
I know, but who are the other 20 people?
No one as good as you. I'll tell you that.
Okay, all right, that means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, maybe Darren first episode, but that's just because it's.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's self-explanatory.
He is the big man, right?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, you are at Shleifman's on the SK Sabrina Kaufman team, and I want to talk today about kind of your journey and tactics that work with real estate, and we'll talk about how the market is going right now. So. I mean, I guess just tell me a little bit of a background about yourself and where you started, how you got into real estate, and where you're at now, and then we'll go from there, I guess.
Well, again, thank you, Ryan, for having me. It's an honor to be on this incredible podcast, probably one of the most relevant out there with all these new podcasts coming on every day. So my journey started just prior to the mortgage crisis that hit in 2008. I was working in my family business. I just gotten married and sort of, for the first time in my life, looked at where am I going to be in 5 years? How am I going to attain what I want and, potentially support a family, and realized that, I needed a change. And Darren had always, encouraged me that, as somebody who loves being around people, that real estate, is something I should consider. So, I finally decided it was probably time to have that conversation with him. And, really what I needed to know was, could this work where, when you're really close with somebody on a personal side, can you also sort of be in a working environment with them where you see them, sometimes every day. And I was assured that it's not an issue. You're an independent, and, the opportunities in real estate were endless. I mean, it's all about how much you want to put in. So I got my license in early February 2009. And as you know, the mortgage crisis had hit there. People were like, what are you doing? This is not the right time to get into real estate. But then you had the other, side of the argument that was like, look, this is an opportunity.
I think it was the perfect time because, there are a lot of people who were selling their places, and, they needed someone to get in there and help them out with that. So I don't know if that was beneficial to you or not.
You know what? I think I didn't realize, exactly what it meant at that time. I will say this, over the last, 15 years, there have been multiple things that have happened in, specifically Ontario real estate that was like, oh my God, this could be the end of real estate as you know it. Whether it was, the mortgage crisis, or it was all these new online brokerages that were offering huge discounts. Was it going to be open bidding? So there was always, something that was coming to the forefront that is going to change the way we do the business. But as as I've seen, nothing has changed. With real estate, you can't really control, the economy and what's happening in it. Interest rates, those are out of your control. But what you can control is that the city we live in is extremely desirable. It continues to be, as there's more and more chaos, across the ocean and south of the border. Toronto becomes more and more attractive to many people. And there's no new neighborhoods that can be built in the city. It's completely, built up. So therefore, it puts a lot of pressure on demand and supply. And like anything, the opportunities are endless.
I agree with that. And I feel like now that's why the prices are getting so high, because the inventory is so little and people want to price their place at, $2-3 million for a decent sized 3-bedroom house. And, people can't afford that now. I understand that the the minimum wage has gone up to whatever, $15, $16, but most people aren't making the money to afford this. And it's like a very small niche of people. It's still a lot of people, but the amount of people who can afford these huge places in the city of Toronto are so few. And then, or I guess without help of parents or, lenders or whatever. And now people are starting to move back and further north to, where they're starting to build these developments in Barrie or in, even King City is, I think, blowing up. And, eventually the city's going to grow so much more north that's going to be the new like central part of Toronto. That's what I think.
No, and you're right. I mean, it's natural that you've got the core of the city, and which was the most desirable place to live, and as those prices escalated, people started to look east, west, north. Right? We couldn't go any further south because then you're swimming. But the interesting thing is that just going back to what we're talking about before is one of the other challenges with, being a real estate professional is that as people saw prices skyrocketed, they saw this as a potential opportunity. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to get my license. Like this looks like I can do 5 deals a year, earn $100 and something $1,000. And that's it. Like what a great year. And in my opinion, I think that has been the biggest challenge to many agents who do this 24/7 is that there are so many alternative for people. Like everybody knows somebody, everybody has a relative, but a lot of them don't do it 24/7. It's a part-time thing. And that was one of the first lessons that Darren taught me when I got into this business because, I was not in my early 20s living at home. I was already, getting married, moving out, looking to purchase my own home. And it was, a very difficult decision to say, okay, I'm going to leave my current employment and just jump into real estate and and expect that, in the next month, I'm going to start making money. So for me personally, I had to slowly integrate myself to the point where, when you get to a point where you realize I'm getting these calls, somebody wants to go see something, but wait, I'm at my current employment. Like this can't work.
What were you doing?
I was working with my mother and my sister who we own a store on Avenue Road. Okay. It's called Paper Graphics. It's been there since 1989. And it, I was very fortunate that I had more flexibility than most people would, right? But I started to understand that if you're going to do this business, you had to be in it, all the way. Like you couldn't do it, I'm just going to do it on the side, because when people realize that it's not something that you're doing 24/7, you're not going to be that one who's, sending them that listing the minute it comes out and saying, let's go see it. It's like, well, wait, I'm finished work at 6, so maybe we can go at 7. So I learned very early that you have to make that commitment. But I was very fortunate that I could slowly sort of wean myself off my current employment once I started to feel like, I really had, a business was starting to come around. So, that's to me the biggest challenge is that there's I don't know, maybe even 70,000 agents in Ontario.
Yeah, I think no, it's not Ontario.
Sorry,
it's just the Toronto board. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a lot, and there are so many of them who don't even get one deal done. I think like half of them actually got one deal done last year. Where you have the other half who actually put in the work and put in the effort 24/7. That's what I did. I decided I was like, you know what, like instead of me doing a couple of part-time things and then real estate full-time, I was told exactly. I don't know if it was Darren or it was someone else that, if you want to commit to it and you want to be successful in the business, you have to do it 24/7 because like you said, as soon as you go and do something else for work and, let's say you're working, like a 9 to 5, or even you work until, like a 8 till 3 or whatever, right? And you have a client that says, hey, I want to go see this place. I'm available at 11 a.m. And you say, oh, well, I can't do that. I'm working until this time, until 2, 3 o'clock. you go see it by 3-4 o'clock and it's gone. Right. So I think that, yeah, it's very important to go into, obviously you need to be financially prepared for that, because, when you're in real estate, you don't know when your next paycheck's going to come, right? Especially when you're starting, like you could go 6 months, a year without doing any business. And you need some sort of collateral to go back and say, hey, like I need to be financially prepared. I'm sure at the time, like you said, you were, I guess living at home or trying to purchase your first house, but you were established already. You had that bank account. Whereas a lot of young realtors, or I guess older ones who started in the business by doing something else, like they had the money saved up, but it's so hard to kind of budget yourself and go into it and say, hey, like I'm okay not getting paid for 6 months.
Yeah, and let's be honest, like most of us, including myself, when you start out, you're likely working on leases. It's not like all of us, because it's to get somebody's trust, like, hey, I just got in the business. You know what? I want you to sell my house, right? Like it like,
doesn't happen.
Like,
yeah.
and you know what? Look, everybody needs a break. Okay. Everybody needs, there's a lot of success comes with hard work, but there's also a bit of like a break here and there, a little bit of luck here and there. And, it's not easy, because you can hustle. Like the great thing about leases is it teaches you how to, like, preparing an offer and negotiating the offer. Those are the same fundamentals that you're going to do when you're selling a house or you're buying a house. Showing people properties doesn't make you an agent. I mean, you don't need an education to do that. It's that's an excuse that a lot of people use. Like, oh my God, good for you. You got me the appointment. Like, oh my God, I've got the best agent out there. So leasing is how most of us start. And we try to leverage those relationships, because, if you've got a client, and they want to be a lawyer, they want to be whatever it is, a profession, at some point they will likely want to make a purchase, whether it's their first condo. So you have to leverage those. But it's hard, because you kind of do your deal, and then you're like, okay, I'm looking for the next one. And you sort of forget about that.
You stay away from,
Yeah, you forget
it's
about it.
so important
They
to
don't
stay
want to
on
hear
top
from
of
me,
those
like,
people.
But, something else I just want to sort of go back to when we're talking about, how, what makes Toronto desirable, but also unaffordable for the majority, is that I think that there are, a lot of people with their current salaries could maybe afford, maybe not now with current interest rates, but could afford to make monthly mortgage payments when interest rates were like, at around 3, under 3. The biggest problem for them was that they don't have a down payment. Again, how do you save $50,000, $100,000 if you're not getting help? It's very difficult.
It's very hard,
especially in
yeah.
this city with the cost of housing, the cost of food. It's a very expensive city to live in. So I think that, with the younger generations coming up, if they're not getting help, it feels like for a lot of them that, owning property in this city is just, it's
Impossible.
not achievable. Yeah, it's impossible because, I'm working a job, I'm making $100K a year, but I don't have, a 5% down payment on, on a condo that's, $800,000 and it's only 700 square feet and it's a 2-bedroom, So I think that's the major hurdle for a lot of young buyers if they're not getting help.
Yeah, we were talking about this as well on one of my episodes that, it's easier to make $10,000 more than to save $10,000 more, right? Like, as much as it sucks, if you feel like it's not achievable for you to go and buy a house, it might be an option to go get a second job, do something on the weekends, right? Find something that, makes you happy and you can work for, 8-9 hours a day, but then you make a little bit more money. Even if you're making $100K a year, it may not be enough, right? And you can work as hard as you want for those 9 to 5, but if you feel like it's difficult for you to save, it's better just to find something else and on top of that, find a friend or a partner or someone who's going to live with you. Because if you find that $800,000 apartment, or did I say 8,000? $800,000 apartment, and you find a friend, then that's only $400,000 each, right? And now that unachievable dream of, getting a place for yourself now becomes more affordable and more achievable because you can go and spend half that money. You live with someone because, there are so many people who go out and they'll live with a partner, or they'll live with a friend, and they're just renting, right? And you're spending that money. But if you have enough saved where you can take a portion of that down payment and someone else takes a portion of that down payment and you put it together, I feel like it's super achievable. Although, the prices are crazy in this city, but there are ways around it so that, just owning one piece of property is I think all that you need, because it's way better to own than to rent.
You know what? Listen, it makes sense, but it's a tricky situation because in that, like, what happens if one day, one of the partners decides, okay, I don't want to live with you anymore. I want to sell, and you don't want to sell. That could be a tricky situation. But your point, the point you're making is that people have to become more creative today if they want to get into the market and own, have an asset in the city. But it is definitely, like, I think if you don't, you should know within 3 years whether you can make this, your career. Like, because with the fees as high as they are, the cost of driving, car insurance, if you can't see yourself doing this in 3 years, like, you should know.
Especially doing it like 24/7. That's what
You
I did.
can't, like, I mean, listen, again, like, it's, if you own a place and you're earning $60,000, it's not going to cut it, right? Now, if you're lucky enough that you're still living at home, that's great. Like, yes, your costs are way down. You don't have, you're not paying rent, or you don't have a mortgage, and your food bills are taken care of. But you have to still be realistic and say, like, oh my God, like, if I wasn't living at home, I wouldn't survive. So I think it's like, within 3 years, you will know whether you can make this work. So it's a hard commitment, because what you find is that in those early years, you're also spending money to try to get your name out there. And then you're trying to attach yourself with other agents to get more exposure. I joined Sabrina, which was a big pivot point in my career.
Yeah, tell me about why. So you started off by yourself.
Yeah.
Right, and you did that for how long, and then you decided to join Sabrina?
I did that probably at least 6 years, at least. Now, the interesting thing was that I joined the brokerage a year after Sabrina, and we did a couple open houses. We're two eager people. Sabrina wasn't from Toronto originally, so she didn't have this network here. Obviously, I wasn't born here, and I grew up here when I was, I moved here when I was 10. But we worked together and very early on and made money together. And I think as Sabrina's business started to really grow, she was looking for people to work with her, because she didn't have enough time to manage all the business that was starting to come in. And, if you don't give the clients the time, they're going to start to look elsewhere. They're not going to feel important, and they're going to find somebody who's going to make them feel important. And I think for me, it was a big decision, because you go from being your own entrepreneur, you manage yourself, to now you're on a team working for somebody, and you're going to also have to not only manage your own business, but you're going to have to treat her clients like they're your clients too. But I think when it came down to it, I realized that, let's call it, the best way to provide myself with recession-proof business is to attach yourself to a top producer.
Because she's
when things
ridiculous,
when agents are struggling, the top producers always make money. They make they find ways. And for me, I think ultimately, I remember talking to my wife, and I spoke to Darren, and I just thought, like, what's the harm in not trying this? If it's not for me, okay. But let's say I say no and somebody else comes on board, and then, 5 years later, I'm like, wow, look at them. That could have been me.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity.
Right?
I think what's good about real estate too is that you can come and go as you please, sort of thing, right? Like, you can go try something out, work with Sabrina for a year, and then come back and do your own thing if it wasn't
Right.
working out. Whereas
Absolutely.
other jobs, like you're locked in, and then if you don't like your job after 6 months, 7 months, you got to go apply to new jobs, and who knows how long that's going to take. So
And it doesn't look good on your resume. Like, why is this person non-committed or like non-committal, excuse me. But I you know what? It's also the other factor in this is, and I'm sure you've started to, meet these types of people is in real estate, there's massive egos.
huge,
And it's
yeah.
everywhere. It's everywhere. And, for me, it was like, okay, well, now I'm selling not under my own brand, but do I really care? Like, I mean, is that so important to me? What's the most important thing? It's making a living that allows me and affords me a lifestyle that I want. And I think at the end of the day, that's the guiding principle for me. I took a lot of flack from a lot of people in this industry. It's as I said, there are a lot of egos out there, and they're too damn proud. And for me, this was an opportunity to work with a brilliant woman who's smart, successful. She's kind, she's generous, and I learned so much from it. And I'm okay with it. I don't like. I listen. I also came from where I was working with my mother and my sister. And, my mother was my business mentor. So the idea of me working for a woman was not like, oh my
Yeah,
God,
it wasn't
like,
crazy. Yeah.
all right, he lost his balls. Like, here
Yeah.
we go,
No, because she's successful.
Yeah, and I think so. So that, for me, that was the driving principle.
Yeah. So for someone who's new to the business, I've had this chat with Cole, and I've talked about this with other people. Would you recommend someone to join a team, or would you recommend them starting off, by themselves, getting thrown in the pit and saying, hey, good luck, with some guidance, of course?
You know what? The problem is you've got to find the right team. Like, I mean, if you're just there and they're just going to throw you leases, okay. Like, it's got to be a situation where, it's incentivized for you that there's going to be other opportunities. Now, again, back in the day, like, pre-COVID and even earlier on, like open houses are a huge business generator. You're meeting people that are coming in. You're trying to, connect with these people. And, if you get one connection out of a weekend of open houses, that could translate into business down the road.
Millions of dollars.
So that's one benefit of attaching yourself to a team if you have access to open houses. But, it's hard to say because it's not for everybody. Because, I'm not here just to feed off of her. Like, I've got it, like, for me, I want my own business. And the combination of working with her and helping her with her clients and opportunities that come from that, just, that's what helps you get to numbers and that that makes sense to being on the team. Okay. Like, it doesn't make sense for her to have me if I'm just there and I'm not
just
bringing
taking
anything.
Stuff, yeah.
Like, you've got to bring your value as well.
So what's the most beneficial part about being on Sabrina's team or a team?
Well, again, it's like working for a great company. It all starts with the leadership. If there's great leadership, and she's a great leader, and it's knowing that there's so much to learn. And as long as you're open to learning and listening and growing from those opportunities, getting access to great, open houses, that's what I think the benefit to me was. It's just, it's hard. There's so many people coming into the business right now, and they don't want to go out there and pound the pavement, and they feel like there should be, I should do at least 10 deals this year. Well, how are you going to get those 10 deals? Like, they're not just going to, your phone doesn't just start ringing.
Yeah, you need to go and...
hey, Ron Noble's in real estate. He's going to go buy my parents a $10 million house.
Well...
Right? I mean, it'd be nice.
It'd be nice.
I mean, you would say no.
I'm open for it, and I would definitely say no.
Listen, it is, it's a type of thing where, like, we're talking about the largest sale purchase that anybody makes, right? Like, you need to know what you're doing. Like, you need to know... because there's a lot of risk, right? So the great thing about being on a team is very, that's collaborative, is that there's people like, hey guys, did you see this house? What do you think it's worth? What do you, because we collaborate a lot. Okay, well, we know we've sold this. We know that, we've seen this. So-and-so sold this. Did you see it? And it's just access to so much more information than when you're a lone soldier.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Like,
Listen, I went in and I'm by myself, and have I considered joining teams? I have, but I've also considered, let me test out the waters first. Let me put myself out there as much as I can, see what works, instead of, because as soon as I have the mentality of someone is going to be relying, or that I need to rely on somebody to give me leads or, help me out, I think it's like it almost puts it in my head that like I don't have to work as hard. Whereas now that I'm off by myself, to start off at least, I can go and put in this work by myself and see where it takes me and then go from there, right? Like you didn't go in right away. You took 6 years to say, hey, maybe I'll join a team, which at the start, maybe you didn't even think about joining a team when you first started in the business, especially because you had Darren as a friend, right? Because I'm sure he was like, oh, like let's go work and do some business together. But when you had that idea of let's separate and, you do your business, I'll do mine, but we'll still stay together and work, I think it's still beneficial. And, the help that we get at the brokerage, I think, has propelled me. Like, I don't know where I would be if I was at another brokerage, how much help I would get, or, and now I've met people who are on teams, who have teams, who, I'm thinking back like, oh, maybe if I had not known about this brokerage, I would be at a different point. But I think everyone has their own path that they want to take within real estate, and it's more about finding which one is best for you and going from there.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think, when you're meeting with prospective clients, they don't care what brokerage you work for.
They care about how
the brokerage
how
matters
you run
to
your
the
business.
agent. It's like, and I think for younger agents especially, it is so important to find the right brokerage because, let's be honest, they'll be like, oh, we're going to train you, we're going to do this, they're going to do that. Listen, a lot of them, there's the fee structure where there's desk fees, there's this fees, there's that fees. They take a small percentage of your deals and they just send you out there. Go get it. Like, they don't care. If you're not making them money, they're getting their desk fees every month, right? Like, it's a numbers game. It's
a lot of them put a
for
fucking PowerPoint up there and they're like, all right, read this, and this is your training. Like,
I mean, listen,
how am I supposed to learn?
Look, at the end of the day, there are people who really, go for all these, trainings and they actually implement, they do the cold calling, they do it. It's not for everybody. I mean, I hate it.
Yeah, but you go door knocking.
But I hate it.
Yeah. So
I'm every time I'm like, please, I hope I don't know this fucking person, please. So, yes. Right? Like, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm also, the nice thing about being on a team is you're held accountable.
Yeah, which I guess is also good.
Right? Like, at the end of the day, who's holding you accountable?
Myself.
I mean, if you want to go golf all day and do fuck all, like, that's your choice.
I would love to do that, yeah. But I don't want to do that.
Well, I mean,
I want to, but yeah, that's the other thing is I want to, I have the mentality of like, I need to go put the work in. But for you, okay, so when you go door knocking, that's not you. That's sort of Sabrina saying, hey, go door knocking. No, what's your strategy for door knocking? What prompts you to go, hey, it's time for me to go door knocking? And like what do you do with that?
It's especially like when you've been working with clients and you know specifically what they're looking for. Like, I'm not going... A majority of door knockers are out there don't have buyers. They're just door knocking, and then they get that one homeowner who's like, hey, I'll talk to you, and the next thing you know, like, it works out. That's why they do it. Just like the scams. All they need is one person to fall for their trap, and that's why they keep calling, right? So we door knock because, a big part of what we offer our clients is that we're not just going to sit around and wait for MLS because, again, anybody can make appointments and anybody can send a listing from MLS. Like, that doesn't make you an agent. So when you specifically know what a client is looking for, you can really be targeted. And that's when door knocking comes into it. Because, listen, in a market like this where, again, there's no supply, you can go months without interacting with your client and showing them stuff, and that's dangerous. Because that's when they're all of a sudden they're starting to be like, Ryan hasn't called me in a while. And then Then their cousin said, "Hey, my agent's amazing. You should call him." And then they're like, "Well, I haven't heard from Ryan or I haven't heard from Marc, so let's try something new." And then guess what? Something comes on the market and they get that deal. And it wasn't like they did anything. It was just the timing. And that's happened to me. That's happened to me where you've door knocked, you've done all your all that you feel that you can do. And sometimes people get frustrated and they feel like they need to change. And that's their right. Like nobody owns, a client. Like, yes, you try to maintain relationships so that you are their agent throughout their real estate journey. But at the end of the day, they are entitled to go with whoever they want. So door knocking is is important because nobody really likes to do it because people are so annoyed when you come in. And the standard thing is like, yeah, give me $8 million bucks so you can have my house tomorrow. Oh, great. Well, it's only worth 2.2. Oh, so yeah, but I get it. Or you now hear, well, where am I going?
I think that's the most important question.
Right? Like, where am I going? You're right. You're like, I don't know. But, the most important thing is that when we door knock, again, it's targeted and we reassure people that, look, we're here because we're doing a service for our clients. And we're not looking for discounts. They understand that by potentially buying a home privately, you're still going to pay, maybe it's a little bit of a premium.
Which it most likely is because
now again,
for me to get out of my house, right, you're not going to pay me what it's worth.
But it's also, you need to understand the values to know, right?
Exactly.
Because otherwise you go in there, like they'll be like, I need 3. You're like, they want 3. Okay, we'll pay 3. Well, then you find out, oh my God, 2.5 was a premium, So you've got to know your area because when you do get somebody who's open to this conversation, you like, obviously you want to know from them. Like, so listen, is there a number that makes sense? So when they give you that number, you've got to know whether that's actually not a bad number. That's in a ballpark. Because you don't want to start bringing your clients there and then you find out, oh my God, they want this. Now you've just wasted everybody's time, right? So again, just to go back to your original question, door knocking for us is when we have really established what the criteria is for these clients, what neighborhoods they want, what style of house they're looking for. And then we go, so we're very targeted.
Okay. And then, we're almost at the end. So I wanted to talk about the market a little bit and where things are at right now. So there's not much inventory. And I think like people are going out, like, are you having troubles with buyers and I'm sure sellers, not really a problem, or the buyers, like, are you finding a problem finding them places or is it generally easy because of price points?
No, I think, listen, at all price points, it's challenging because you know what? You'd like to think and you'd want your clients to think that, I don't have anybody else who's competing with you in this price range in this neighborhood. But when you have a certain demographic as your clientele, they all want the same neighborhoods. They all have the same relatively price ranges. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And so again, that's part of the door knocking and whatever else you need to do to try to find them inventory. But I mean, this has been a problem, I feel like, since, for a long time. Like, there's always been a lack of supply. And it goes back, there's no new neighborhoods being built in the city. Even though they're trying to open up the green belt, I believe. Everybody's, generally wants to live, south of Steeles, north of the lake. And then you've got your east-west boundaries. So it's challenging. And I think a lot of potential buyers out there now are very hesitant to list their house first because they just don't see what's coming on like anything that they would like is coming on the horizon. If there's a ton of product hitting the market, people will be like, okay, I'm confident, let's sell. Because usually you want your clients to sell first because then they know exactly what they can spend. Right?
Yeah, that's true too. But then you have the other side where, like, they don't know what they want to buy.
They don't know what they want to buy, but we've run into this periodically every couple of years where people would buy and then they hold on to, and they get long closings and then they hold on to their house because they want to enjoy, their pool one last summer so their kids can be with their neighbors. And guess what? The market changes. Now all of a sudden they can't sell their house for what they thought it was. Or the bank now comes to them and says, like, look, you have a 4-month closing. We appraised it at 2 months. We want to reappraise it at 4 months. And now all of a sudden they're saying, we were going to give you an 80-20, debt ratio. Now we're only going to provide you with 70. So where's that extra 10% coming on a $3 million house, right?
Yeah, it's all.
So that can be very dangerous. And if you talk to a lot of veterans in the brokerage, they'll tell you like that can, like the worst that happens if you sell first is that you may have to rent.
Right, but at least you're going to have the money to be able to rent.
And then when
you
when you find the right product, you're ready to go. Now again, obviously the rule in real estate is try to buy and sell in the same market. If you're lucky enough to sell high and buy low, good on you. But at the end of the day, it's pretty hard to achieve that. But so yeah, we're in this state now with most of our clients where we're telling them like, look, if you are willing to spend the money to get your house ready and prepped, and it shows its absolute best, you will do well. There are so many buyers out there. But on the flip side, it's like, look, we can try to get you a long closing, but that's still no guarantee that something's going to come up that you're going to want. It's not like we don't want you to buy the first thing because you feel that pressure. So that's why a lot of people now, are feeling more comfortable. They want to buy first and then sell.
Yeah. So I guess. No, that is a good point because I have the same. I have buyers and I have people who want to sell, but they want to wait for the market, and I think it makes sense for them to sell first, see what you get for it, and then know what you can buy. It's just a matter of figuring out what they want to buy and when. So with the market right now, where do you see it going in like the next couple of months? Like I understand, obviously you can't time the market, you don't know what's going to happen, but do you think that there's going to be more inventory that comes up?
I mean, we thought there was going to be more inventory in February. Like February was a pretty good month. Like
well, because it was selling last quickly. Year was huge. Last year in February was the height of the market. So people thought the same thing was going to happen this year.
And there was a lot of inventory. I mean, there was a lot of high end that was selling within a week. There was stuff everything that was coming on the market was selling. So we all thought that this is a good sign. But then obviously interest rates went up, and then the cost of like groceries and skyrocketed. And I find that what's happened now is that there's let's call it a 4-month period where specifically in this city, people just need a little bit of time to get adjusted to the current economic situation. And then once they're like, okay, this is what it's going to cost to buy a head of lettuce at the grocery store, or now I go to I go out for dinner and everything's 10 to 15% higher. So I think that there was a little bit of an adjustment there, but just like with COVID, we were shut down with COVID, but there were people who were going to sell their homes. Once they sort of got comfortable with like this is all right, people are going to wear masks, there's going to be no open houses. Then all of a sudden, that's why the summer took off, right? Like because it was that period of time where it was like, oh my God, what's happening? And then it was like, okay, you know what? I was going to sell. I still want to sell. And, so I feel like there's always that adjustment period. But listen, people are getting pre-approved at almost 8% now. Like it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. But we're getting like a lot of our clients, and we're getting, are eager. They want to buy. They're looking at change. So I think that, you never know. To say that there's going to be more product, I don't know. I'm hoping it's going to be a busy summer.
Yeah, me too.
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, usually summers were quieter, especially August. But last summer was busy for a lot of agents.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that real estate is starting to get to be it's a 12-month year. It's not like it used to be where summers were quiet. December's dead, January's dead. So I'm hoping that, we're going to see more product. I mean, I can tell you in our team, we've got, quite a few listings that have come up recently and that are coming in the pipeline. So, but I don't know, is that reflective of all the other top agents in the city? Are they holding back inventory right now? I don't know.
Right. Okay. Well, anyway, Mark, thank you. Really appreciate it. We're just about at the end. So, some great insight. It was good to learn a little bit about the market. We haven't really talked about the market too much. So, if you're looking to sell, it's a good time to sell. If you're looking to buy, I think it's also a good time to buy. I think it's just, whenever you feel like you're ready and you feel like this is the right time for you, I think you should just go for it and do it.
Yeah, just make sure you do your due diligence, and, financially, exactly like what you can afford, and then, and you've just got to be aggressive. You got to be aggressive. You can't be passive in this market.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And yeah, that's it. I guess we'll see everyone next week.